What's going on, BLV? It's Mitch here, live for week number 5 NFL picks, straight up and versus the spread. Every single game, every single pick. It's Mitch of TheBottomLineView. Thanks for joining live or after the fact. Gronk, spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly NFL picks, all 14 games. Don't forget to check out my best bets. That will be live following this video. Hello to all the people in the chat. Last week, not a great week from a best bets perspective. In fact, the worst week in a while. But in terms of the actual picks on this show, not awful, not horrible. So last week, 10-6 straight up, which I'll take considering my best bets were atrocious last week. 10-6 straight up isn't horrible. Our spread record was 9-7 last week, so still above 500 despite our best bets being 1-4. Straight up on the season, 41-23. Over under, we're still above 500, 34, 29, and 1. I was 8-8 on the over unders, which will come out tomorrow. That video, of course, alive once again. Let me know how you did last week, guys. I thought it was a really tough week. I actually thought at the beginning of the week it was a really tough week. This week, it almost feels like it was made for a bounce back. It was made for redemption. Gronk, spike the like button. Let's go. Let's start with Thursday night football. We've got the Chicago Bears at the Washington Commanders. The Bears. The Commies. Washington minus 5.5 in this game. My boy, my man, Samuel Howell is an absolute legend. What a game last week by Sam Howell. In the face of pressure, making throw after throw, strike after strike versus Big Al's Philadelphia Eagles, going toe-to-toe with Jalen Hurts, and he nearly made the Eagles hurt. I think the Commies are decent this year. I think they're playing pretty well. I'd like their defense to play a little bit better. I think this is a spot for the defense to get on track. I think what we saw out of Chicago's offense was a bit fluky last week. They were playing the worst defense literally in NFL history through the first 4 weeks. So that does help your offense produce points. And Justin Fields actually looked like a good quarterback last week. I don't expect that to happen this week against Washington's front. I think Washington will have a break in terms of not covering A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but only DJ Moore this week. Now, look out for Cole Kmet. Had a very good game last week. Was one of the top, if not the top fantasy tight end last week. I think he had 2 touchdowns. But I like the Commanders. I like how they're playing. They're at home. Their defensive front, I think, will be disruptive in the run game and slow that down, forcing Justin Fields to be a drop-back passer. I think they're athletic enough to chase him down in open space. And I feel that it's time for the Commanders' defense to start to take control of this season. If the Commanders want to make the playoffs, they've got to get more production out of their defense on a consistent basis. I think that starts this week. Offensively, the offensive line for the Commanders, still a bit rough, but this is one of the worst pass rushes in football. It also helps that they're not on the road because bad offensive lines don't travel well. They are an offensive line that's at home here, so I think that at least helps versus a bad pass rush. So I think Howell will have time. I think Howell, with time, will be dangerous to rather throw, extend plays with his legs, run the football, and scramble. So I've got the Commanders to win, and I will take the Commanders to cover. It's a tricky one. I'm probably not going to bet it, but under 6, a key number, I will take the Commanders to cover and win by about 6 to 10 points at home in this game. The next matchup is the Carolina Panthers and the Detroit Lions. Lions favored by 9.5 points, bro. 9.5. I got the Lions to win and the Lions to cover. Look, I am concerned about Bryce Young right now. I am concerned. Why? Bryce Young is small. Bryce Young doesn't have a strong arm. Bryce Young is not quick or fast enough to elude and escape pressure. I tried to tell you guys, CJ Stroud is superior. And I should have, at the end of the day, put Anthony Richardson ahead of the young man, but I was not convinced about Anthony Richardson in the NFL throwing the football. More on him in a little bit. But the Carolina Panthers are a bad football team. The Carolina Panthers, I was surprised they were that close versus the Minnesota Vikings. They got a pick six, 99 yards. They defensively actually had an admirable game. They played pretty well at home. But now they're on the road. They're in the comfy dome of Detroit. They've got the crazy Lions fans that have never been this excited since Barry Sanders was on the football team. And Jared Goff and this offense are just clicking. They're flowing. All the play calls from Ben Johnson are working. The offensive line is able to just mash people's faces in. They're running the ball too much with David Montgomery, but whatever. At least they're winning games. Jahmyr Gibbs should be getting more carries, but I'm not the coach, so what do I get to say anything about? That being said, really like the combo of St. Brown and Reynolds out there. I feel like once Jameson Williams comes back, if that's this week, I think it might be. We'll see what element he brings in terms of a vertical element to this offense that I think might be missing a little bit. But I think the Lions are legit, man, and I think their defense is really good in these type of matchups where the offense is not good at all that they're facing. They're going to be able to stop the run of the Panthers completely. They're a good run defense team. I think that'll be a point of emphasis. And then they're going to play man coverage on the outside, force Bryce Young to make tight window throws. And I just don't think the Panthers have the receivers to separate from this secondary. And then I think Aiden Hutchinson is going to have a day. So I feel like the Lions will win. I feel like the Lions will cover. And under 10, I would take the Lions to cover this. If it gets to 10.5, 11, that's where I would be a little bit more onto Carolina. But under 10, I'm leaning towards Detroit to cover and Detroit to win this game. Next, we've got the Buffalo Bills, favored by 5.5 in London. I believe it's Tottenham Stadium, if that's how you actually say it. I don't know how the British say it, so don't get me going here. But I'm only Canadian. I don't know what they say. Jacksonville gets 5.5 at home. This is the weirdest spot for a football team. So for some reason, they made the Bills a home team in a game where the other team just played in London. The furthest, the farthest trip, the furthest you can go in terms of a plane, in terms of going somewhere in the NFL to London, right? And they made the Bills the home team. What sense does that make? That makes no sense. So they stripped a home game away from Buffalo when the team was already playing. Oh, never mind. And anyways, I am going with the Bills. I haven't seen enough from Jacksonville for me to pick the cool upset win. I haven't seen enough. Going into the season, I really wanted to pick Jacksonville here because they've had that time to establish themselves in that time zone, get rested up, go travel around a little bit, prepare for Buffalo and be ready to go. And Buffalo as well is coming off a really big win against Miami, their division foe, their division rival. That's a big deal, and typically teams fall off the week after. So I could see maybe the Bills starting this game a little bit slow. But the way Jacksonville is playing here, it's just not good enough, man. Trevor Lawrence, I feel like he's getting no shame whatsoever. He's getting no side eye. Well, why is this guy getting no... people just keep blaming it on the receivers. They're blaming it on everything. The offensive line. Everything but Trevor Lawrence. I don't know, man. I don't know. But the offensive line, I will say, is not playing that well. You've got a Bills pass rush that's playing really well. You've got a Bills secondary that I am a little bit worried about in the week post Tre'Davious White getting hurt, because Trayvon Diggs got hurt for Dallas, and that seemed to really affect them. So maybe there's something there when you lose a top corner the week following. Can the team really regroup and cause it? Because they maybe don't see the holes quite yet with how they can fix that secondary. So I feel like that might be something to capitalize on for Jacksonville. But the Bills do have plenty of depth and guys that have played in this system and the guys that have been productive in this system in the secondary. I'm not sure the status and the health of Jordan Poyer. He didn't play last week, but I don't think it was a huge concern, so maybe he's back this week. Overall, though, the Bills' offense is just playing absurdly well in the passing game. They're getting balanced through the running game. James Cook has been a baller this year. Stephon Diggs is uncoverable. Great matchup between him and Tyson Campbell. I think that's a lot better for Jacksonville than it was for Miami, whoever they were trying to cover him with, Kohu, or they never really tried to put Howard on him all that much. But Diggs was toasting last week. I think Campbell will do a better job. But I just think the Bills are playing really, really good football, and I think the Jags are not playing that well. They had their best game against Atlanta, but that was an Atlanta team that's completely one-dimensional, completely predictable, the worst quarterback in the NFL. There's so much to say about that matchup. So for me, I'm going with the Bills to win, the Bills to cover. It's not going to be a best bet because of the wild card situation of going to London and the team already staying in London. There's literally no track record of that, I believe. So I'm not sure how teams will respond to that sort of situation. But I will take the Bills because I just feel like they're playing like arguably the best team in the NFL, definitely the AFC. And Jacksonville is just not playing that well offensively. Too many issues with the offensive line. Too many issues with the receiving core, Calvin Ridley, Trevor Lawrence rapport. So I'm going to go with Buffalo there with the guy that's probably the best quarterback in the NFL right now, Josh Allen. Then we've got the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This will be a best bet, which my best bets will be coming out right after this video. So stay tuned to the BLV. Ravens, Steelers. I like the Steelers with the points here, getting 4 points, but I'm going to take the Ravens to win a close one. I think the last 4 games they've played have been decided by a field goal or less, which is absolutely insane, but look it up. And almost all of the games have been under 20 points for both teams. So that is absurd, but I feel like the Steelers are due for a bounce back. Last week, I should have been able to predict a layeth of the eggeth by Mike Tomlin. He typically loses a game he shouldn't lose on the road in like a spot against a team that they overlook. But in this type of spot, we've already seen it this year. They played Cleveland at home and they beat them outright. Somehow, some way, they did. Right? They got destroyed by the Niners. I get that. But they're a 2-2 football team. Kenny Pickett hurt. I don't know if Mitch Trubisky is really a downgrade. Actually, he might be an upgrade, honestly. He's got a better arm and he's more athletic. So he might be able to do more for this team. Defensively, though, I think the Steelers bounce back. They've always played Lamar Jackson very, very well. They've been able to get pressure. They've been able to contain his running game. The Ravens don't really have the team at full health yet and full strength. The secondary is really beat up still. The offensive line still dealing with injuries, and the receiving corps still dealing with injuries. So I think that this is just a division game where the Steelers play the Ravens close, the Ravens play the Steelers close. These two teams could be on the opposite sides of the power rankings, and they'd still play each other to within a touchdown. It's kind of like Washington and Philadelphia. It's like not too much to read into when they play each other, but I just feel like when you're getting 4 points with the Steelers at home against the Ravens, you've got to take the points. But I do believe that in the end, Justin Tucker, Lamar Jackson, in those game-clinching scenarios, you're going to take them over Mitchell Trubisky and Matt Canada. So I'm going to take the Ravens to win a close one, but I think the Steelers grind it out, play with full hearts, and they nearly win, but they're just not good enough and talented enough to win the game. Next, the Houston Texans at the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta -1.5. Man, this one's tough. I kind of like the Falcons for some reason. I want to pick the Texans because I think Desmond Ridder is trash. But I don't know. Something about this game, I feel like Atlanta is going to win. I don't know why. I know it's 1.5. It's not really like either team's not really a favorite here. But Desmond Ridder has never lost a game at home. He never lost a game at home in the NFL. Never lost a game in college football. Never lost a game in high school, bro. The guy just wins at home. Maybe it's the home cooking. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I really don't know. This is like the trickiest game of the week. This is not going to be a best bet. But I picked Atlanta to win the NFC South before the year. I think the Texans, they're coming off a big win against the Steelers. They're going to Atlanta. And one thing about Atlanta is when they run the ball well, they win. When they don't run the ball well or they're facing a good run defense, they don't win. We've seen that against Jacksonville. We've seen that against Detroit. Houston is not on that level of run defense. They're closer to below average. I wouldn't call them a bad run defense, but they're a below average run defense. I think Atlanta, if they get a lead at home in this game, they're going to be able to run the ball, play in their game state, protect the football, protect Desmond Ridder, make him a non-participant in this game. And then their defense, low-key, has been playing really good football. Like, this is a top 10, top 12 defense right now. They're doing a fairly good job against the run. David Onyemata has been playing phenomenal. Their secondary is playing really good. And I feel like A.J. Terrell is probably playing like top 10 football at his position right now. He can match up with Nico Collins. Love how Jesse Bates is playing as well. So I think Atlanta at home versus a rookie quarterback, I'm going to take Atlanta. I just feel like, yeah, they're the better overall roster and team, and they're at home. I love what CJ's doing. He's playing like a top 10 quarterback. If the Texans win this game, I think they're officially pretty legit. If Atlanta wins this game, I feel like it pretty much keeps them on track to what I thought they would be, but it doesn't really change my opinion. So I'm going with Atlanta to win, but I'm not like convinced. Next, we've got the New Orleans Saints at the New England Patriots. Patriots favored by 1 point. Oh, man. J.C. Jackson. That made me smile. J.C. Jackson getting traded to the Patriots. That actually made me smile. That made me feel good, bro. I was all about it. You know, Mr. INT. He's back in New England. He's going to take Christian Gonzalez's spot on the perimeter for the rest of the season. Everybody pray for Christian Gonzalez to be in good health for 2024. Matthew Judon hopefully can come back later in the year. Or if we're not in good shape, he can come back next year. But, I'm picking the Saints. I just don't want to pick the Patriots right now. Like, I don't want to. And I don't think this is a good matchup for the current state of the Patriots. It's at home, yeah. And New England, I picked them to win this game before the year. But this is not a good matchup for us. If we play anything like we did against Dallas, we're going to lose. Like, the Saints play a heavy rate of man coverage. Our receivers can't get open. We can't run the ball right now. I don't think we're going to be able to run the ball against the Saints. I think we're going to struggle to move the ball. Like, and people are going to blame Mac Jones after the game. That's the way it's going to go, even though it probably won't be his fault. But I will say this. If New England doesn't turn the ball over, I think they've got a decent chance of winning because the Saints offense looks really bad right now. Like, they played like ass against the Bucs last week. And Derek Carr, very conservative. Alvin Kamara washed. But I am worried about the Saints receivers versus our corners and the current state of our depth chart right now. We'll probably have to play a lot of zone, which I think will make Derek Carr pretty comfortable. And our pass rush, I'm just not sure what to expect without Matthew Judon in there. So I'd like to see a lot more Keon White. I think he's a real baller, but I don't trust Belichick right now to put the proper players on the field. I just don't. So I've got the Saints to win a close defensive game right now. They're healthier. And I think the way they play matches up with New England well. So I'm going to take the Saints. Obviously, I hope that the Patriots win. I'm a fan of the team. And I feel like if New England does win, they're back on track this year. I think they need to buy a little bit of time for some guys to get healthier. Because, like, Jonathan Jones, hopefully he's back, but I'm not sure he'll be back. Jack Jones will be back soon. Tyquan Thornton will be back soon. Riley Reif could be back soon. So New England could get some reinforcements to make them more competitive on offense and defense. But that might not take place this week. It might take place in 2 or 3 weeks. But when you look at their schedule, they've played a really tough schedule so far. If New England can beat the Saints and beat the Raiders, they're 3-3. So all of a sudden, they're looking like they're in the mix, which I think is what Belichick is leaning into by picking up J.C. Jackson. But this is a huge game for New England. If they lose this game, I feel like we're done this year, unfortunately. But if they win this game, I'll be back happy and motivated Pats fan. But I just don't see it. I don't think we're playing well enough. I think our offense sucks. So I'm going to take the Saints. Next, the New York Giants at the Miami Dolphins. Miami is favored by 11.5, and I think this might have gone down to 11 by the time I made these graphics. But I'm taking Miami. I don't care. It's a lot of points. But I just feel like Miami is one of those teams that is so explosive. When you get them at home, it's just one of those environments where they're going to score, and they're going to score, and they're going to score, and then their defense maybe is not playing that well throughout the course of a game, but they're just going to get turnovers, and they're going to rack up sacks and pressures, and it's just going to turn into like a hurricane of Miami Dolphin just running over the other team. That's kind of how I view the Dolphins. I think they're going to get an early lead. The Giants will probably be in it a little bit early, kind of like the Broncos were, and then the Dolphins will just unleash mayhem in the second half, and they'll be able to cover this game by about 17 to 20 points. So I have Miami winning. I think they get back on track offensively in this game, scoring high 30s probably. And then the Giants, I think, will play a little bit better than last week, but man, they look really bad. The offensive line situation is terrible. They can't block. And their defense is struggling out there. They played better against the Seahawks, but they don't really do anything well. Like, I'm not really sure what the Giants do on defense that really is scary for an opponent. They have a couple good players, but do they stop the run really well? Not really. Do they pressure really well? Not really. Do they cover really well? Not really. I don't know what they do. And offensively, they're one of the worst units in football. Daniel Jones is not playing good football. So this is a big get-right spot for Miami after an embarrassing loss at Buffalo. I'll take Miami to win, Miami to cover. Next game, we got the Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts are favored by 1 point at home. This is a really tricky one. I do understand that there's some injuries for the Colts. I think Kwity Paye might not go in this game, and Flowers as well, that have been crucial to their defense. Something tells me to pick the Colts, though, because they're at home, and this is just like a division matchup where these teams, in my opinion, are fairly even. I have the Titans above them in my power rankings, but the Titans are the type of team that they punch above their weight when they're an underdog, and when they're a favorite, they seem to play below their level, and they seem to play to their opponent. And what we've also seen with Tennessee is they're really good at home and not so good on the road. And I think a lot of that factors with the offensive line. Like, the offensive line can't really protect that well. And I think the offensive line is a different unit when at home compared to on the road, right? I think they were blown out on the road versus, I can't even remember. They beat the Chargers and they beat the Bengals at home. They lost to the Browns by like 24 points. And they lost to, I can't remember the other game. The Saints? And they struggled in that one. So this one's tough for me. I don't know. Like, I don't want to pick against Mike Vrabel, but I really like what I've seen out of Shane Steichen. I think I'm just going to lean into the Titans are a different team on the road. So I'm going to take the Colts to win this game somehow, some way. We did see Deshaun Watson run the ball really well against Tennessee, so maybe Anthony Richardson can do that in this game. Some creative running with the quarterback, setting up some big pass plays down the field to Michael Pittman and others. And then defensively, the Colts are really stout against the run, and their strength is their front seven. So I feel like they will be able to cause some havoc for the Tennessee offense and offensive line. That being said, I think long-term the Titans are the better team. I just feel like this is one of those where the Titans are the road team, Colts are the home team, division matchup, very close game. I think the Colts win, but it could go either way once again. Next, the Philadelphia Eagles at the LA Rams. I'm going with the Eagles here, but I will take the Rams plus 4.5. I think if Cooper Kupp is back, I definitely would take the Rams plus 4.5. I think that Stafford can have success against this secondary. And the Eagles' pass rush so far has been a little overrated. They've had their moments, but I feel like they've also played some pretty weak offensive lines and have not done as much damage as expected. That being said, I expect this to be a shootout. I think it could be something like 31-27. And I think if the Rams take a lead at home, I would actually not be surprised if the Rams won the game. So I feel like the Rams at home, if they can get a lead, force the Eagles out of like their predictable run first game script, they can actually take the Eagles by storm and start to put them in an uncomfortable position. So I could see the Rams winning the game if they get an early lead, but I could also see the Rams covering this spread in a chasing scenario because of Stafford and what he does in the fourth quarter, in the second half with his weapons. The Eagles tend to play a lot of zone coverage, which I think is good for the Rams. Stafford can, manipulate the defenders, look one off, hit the hole in the zone, hit down the seam in the middle of the field to Nakua and maybe Kupp. Van Jefferson, I wouldn't be surprised if Tutu Atwell had a big play in this game. And Kieran Williams is playing really good at running back as well to give them enough balance to keep the Eagles on their toes. And the defense of the Rams, I've always said, I don't think they're that talented. I do think there's a chance they could get pushed around in this matchup by the Eagles offensive line, which would be the reason that I would be wrong about the spread. But I feel like the Eagles, they have sputtered a bit in games. Like every game, there's like a couple moments where their offense isn't quite right and they have to fix it and tweak it, which allows their opponent to stay in the game or to lead in the game. So I'm going to take the Rams plus the points, but I'll take the Eagles to win the game just because I think they're the more talented team. And ultimately, I think when it comes to the fourth quarter, the line of scrimmage will dictate the winner. And I feel like the offensive line of the Eagles is just overpowering, even for a unit that features Aaron Donald. And the defensive line of the Eagles, I feel like will get enough of a pass rush in those big moments in the fourth quarter to be able to make a play or two or a stop or two. So that's where I go with this one. I feel like the Eagles win in the fourth quarter, but Stafford and McVay make it really close and worrisome for Philadelphia. Next, we've got the New York Jets at the Denver Broncos. Denver's minus 1.5. I'm going Jets here. I'm Zach Wilson all the way. That's my guy. Zach Wilson is now my profile pick on Discord. The legend returns. But Zachary is going to have a big game here against the worst defense in NFL history. This is a big game, momentum right here. The Broncos are always overrated in terms of the spread. I don't think they've covered the spread yet this season. So that just tells you what the books are just being off on this Denver team. I think they're overrating Sean Payton, overrating Russell Wilson, and certainly overrating this defense. But the Jets, you look at who they've played, right? The Jets have played rather a great team or a great defense. They've played the Bills, and they've actually beat the Bills. They played the Chiefs. They played the Cowboys, and they played the Patriots, who own the Jets. So you look at their schedule so far, and they've played some of the best defenses in the NFL, some of the best offenses in the NFL, some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, some of the best coaches in the NFL. So the Jets, I just feel like maybe a little bit underrated going into this game. Meanwhile, the Broncos have not seen a defense, in my opinion, of the quality of the Jets. The Broncos have played Chicago, the Raiders, the Commanders, and who is the other team they played? The Dolphins. Their defense also stinks. So, yeah, Miami has a really good offense, much better than the Jets, there's no doubt. But the defense of the Jets is going to be a newsflash for the Broncos. I feel like this defensive line is going to dominate the secondary. I don't see the Broncos really getting open very much, which is going to cause Russ to pat the ball, and then eventually that rush is going to get there. And I don't really see the Broncos as a great running team to kind of offset the Jets' pass rush enough. At the same time, I feel like Zach and the Jets found a little bit of a formula last week. Run the ball, play action, protect Zach, allow him to utilize his legs and his arm to make a play. And I feel like as long as he doesn't make game-breaking mistakes, he's going to do enough to win this game. We even saw last year, like Zach, as long as he doesn't turn it over, they can beat some teams. So I'm going to go Jets here in this game. I just think they're the better roster, better team. Even though Russell is the better Wilson in this game, I'm going to take the Jets as the better team. Also, there's the Robert Saleh motivation to beat Sean Payton. Just pointing that out. Also, the Hackett motivation as well. Kansas City Chiefs at the Minnesota Vikings. Chiefs -4. Chiefs to win this game. I don't understand why this spread's 4. Like, I understand the Vikings have a really good offense and they're especially good at home. But the Vikings defense, I'm not sure they're going to get a stop in this game. And you talk about Chiefs not playing that well, but they were up 17-0, 17-3, something like that in the game against the Jets. They took their foot off the gas. I don't see that happening 2 weeks in a row. I don't see that happening 2 weeks in a row, especially when they know they're playing Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson. They can come back on them. They can score points. I think the Chiefs got a little arrogant on offense last week, and we're like, oh, we're playing Zach Wilson. We score 10, we win the game, right? So, and I think the Vikings defense, they're just not going to do enough here to really threaten the Chiefs from an offensive standpoint. If Flores will throw a lot of blitzes and a lot of creative stuff at Mahomes, but I just don't see much of it working because the personnel isn't there for it to work. Like, I just don't see it. And then on the other side, I think the Chiefs defense could have a little bit of a bounce back spot here. Although the Vikings offense is really good, I think the Chiefs defense will be disappointed by their performance against the Jets. They were playing really good football before that. They've got a couple of good corners I like, pretty good safeties, and a pass rush. Chris Jones is playing really well. Of course, George Karlaftis is actually having a pretty good season. I think they can make some plays in this one. So I think the Chiefs win a higher scoring game, but they probably win by more of a touchdown than a field goal. So I'm going to go Chiefs win, Chiefs cover in this game. Next, the Bengals at the Arizona Cardinals. Oh man, I've got to take the Bengals, and I've got to take them to cover. This is irresponsible of me because, once again, I'm betting against the Cardinals. But the Bengals, if they don't win this game and they don't cover this game, you might as well write them off for the rest of the year. So it's one last ride with Joe Burrow here and the boys. And Jamar Chase, obviously frustrated. He says he's always open. Joe Burrow, he's not playing well. The team is not playing well. They were slaughtered by Tennessee. But one more time, I got to go with the Bengals. I got to. The Cardinals are not a very talented football team. Are they playing well? Yeah, kinda. But the Bengals are more talented. The Bengals should be better on offense, should be better on defense. If the Bengals, again, it's as simple as if the Bengals don't win, they're done. Like, I can't see them coming back from this. So, for that reason, I've got to take the Bengals. Next, the Dallas Cowboys at the San Francisco 49ers. This is a Sunday Night Football matchup, arguably the best matchup of the NFL season. I am attending this game. Maybe I'm biased. This is in San Francisco. It's Cowboys, Niners. I'm taking the Niners to win and the Niners to cover. At home. The Niners are just different. I don't think people realize how good the Niners are. Like, the Niners have a ridiculously efficient offense and an awesome defense, and they're at home. Like, don't get me wrong, the Cowboys are a good football team. I love their speed of their defense. I think they've got a great pass rush. I think they've got a pretty solid secondary. I like Dan Quinn a lot. I think that the offense is pretty talented, but I don't think they're playing up to their standard. I don't think they're playing good enough to beat a Niners team right now. So the way that I break it down is, first of all, offensively for the Niners, I think Christian McCaffrey will be the shining star of this game. We saw the Cardinals attack the Cowboys with misdirection and their ability to hit the angles in the running game, right? And take advantage of that aggressiveness of the Cowboys front. Is there anyone better than Kyle Shanahan at doing that? I just feel like McCaffrey's going to have a big game there. And then he's also going to have a mismatch on the weakness of the Cowboys defense, which I think is the linebacker position in the pass game. So I think McCaffrey's a problem here because you also have to deal with Kittle. I also feel like nobody's talking about how good Brandon Ayuk is right now. Brandon Ayuk is uncoverable right now. Nobody can cover this guy. So every time the Cowboys go to man, which they love to play, there's so many mismatches for the Niners. I think Brandon Ayuk, as much as I love Steph Gilmore, I think Ayuk will make some plays. And we know Debo can make some plays too. So I think it's tough. Purdy, he saw the Cowboys last year. I think he was shocked by the speed and aggressiveness of their defense. I think now that Kyle has seen Dan Quinn's scheme for the last couple of years, it's going to help him get a game plan against this team and have a counterpunch. Because I don't think there's that much that Dan can really do to do anything different. I think they're just going to kind of do what they've been doing against the Niners, which has mostly been working for the most part. But I feel like now Purdy's in rhythm. The offense is in rhythm. The offensive line is blocking their asses off. The weapons are fully into the game plans and into the plays. McCaffrey is fully into this offense. And the defense of the Niners may not be as dominant as last year, but they're still damn good. And my problem with the Cowboys offense is a little bit vanilla and predictable through their scheme so far this year. And then their red zone offense has not been effective. So I feel like they're not really going to be able to run the ball with that much success. And it's going to be a lot on Dak Prescott. And I feel like eventually the Niners will get pressure. The Niners will make plays. They'll fly around. They've got that great speed at linebacker. Dak will make one mistake that will change the game. And I feel like ultimately the Niners will make more stops than Dallas. And the Niners offense is just playing at a different level. So I've got San Francisco in this game. I just feel like they're different. I feel like they're a great team. And I don't see many holes in their game right now. I do see a couple holes in Dallas's game. And the Monday Night Football game, the Green Bay Packers at the Las Vegas Raiders. You guys know I'm all about the Packers this year, but I am a little bit biased towards the Raiders at times when it comes to the Patriots in Vegas there. But I like the Packers. I think the Packers are getting reinforcements. I think they played an awful performance on Thursday, and Matt LaFleur knows that. He even talked about it at halftime of that game. They came out with a different energy. They came out with a different passion. I think the Packers bounce back big in this game. The Raiders, I think, maybe offensively will be able to do some things. Jimmy might be back. I think their run game might do some things in this game. Devontae Adams is always challenging. I would expect Jacoby Myers to have a good game, but I've seen a lot of the injury report for Green Bay, and it looks like good news. Looks like Aaron Jones and Christian Watson continue to practice here. Elton Jenkins was back at practice. Jair Alexander was back at practice, which is a huge matchup versus Devontae Adams. That will be an awesome matchup to watch. And then another thing I noticed about last week, the Raiders in their pass protection, Khalil Mack had 6 sacks. I think Rashawn Gary can have similar success, not 6 sacks, but maybe 2 in this game that can change the game. Of course, we know Jimmy is a bit of a statue at times. But I think that Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur bounce back on offense against this Raiders defense that I think is definitely susceptible to this Packers high-flying, speedy offense. So I'll take the Packers in this Monday Night Football on the road spot. Always tough to pick the road team on Monday night, but I think the Packers are clearly a tier or 2 above the Raiders in my power rankings. So I've got to take Green Bay for a bounce back here. I still believe they'll make the playoffs. So Green Bay -1, Green Bay to win the game. Those are all my picks. Only 14 this week. We don't have a 16-game schedule. It's only 14. We have a couple buys. So let me know what you thought of my picks. Let me know your picks in the comment section below. Gronk, spike the like button if you didn't already. Subscribe for weekly NFL picks and best bets. And we will see you for week number 6. Have a great week, guys. No live streams this week because I will be in San Francisco. Maybe I'll take a little video or something in San Francisco to give you a little update of what's going on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Let's say hello to the people in the chat. We got Justin in the chat. Coach is in the chat. Henderson's in the chat. Sing, Big Al, Edgar, Kevin Durkant. Shout out to Kevin Durkant. Caesar. Who else is in there? Chalk Dusted. We've got, who else? Claire Flute's in the chat. Marcus in the chat. Shout out to you guys. We're close to 44K. So share this video with your friends. Tell them to subscribe to the BLV. And don't forget to check out Patreon, guys. Link in the description. That's where you can get all of my best bets every week for the NFL. Week 5, bounce back week, incoming. Patreon starts at $3 a month, guys. Peace.